Good afternoon to you. Mark Sutton with HurricaneTrack.com here. It is Tuesday, the 25th of July, 2023. I am in Flagstaff, Arizona, continuing my work with one of my colleagues to test equipment and track down any monsoonal activity yesterday. Kind of busy, very heavy rain, some lightning strikes, gusty winds. We were in southwest Utah, made our way down through the Vermilion Cliffs area, the Grand Staircase, and made it here to Flagstaff. Today, we're going to go see the Grand Canyon and then get ready for more activity this afternoon up here, probably west of I-17 between Flagstaff and southwest towards Sedona. Pretty active day coming up, it does look like. But we need to talk about the tropics, the Gulf. We've got to watch the Gulf. We can have a little sneaky system come in. And yes, I know the GFS is playing cat and mouse with the potential of a long track system maybe coming towards the southeast United States in early August. We will address that and more in today's update. As always, great to have you along. Let's get going, shall we? A couple of areas here, 2 X's. I guess Elon hasn't bought the X's from the Hurricane Center, so we still have them. Ha ha. I tell you what. Anyway, I just can't get away from it. Maybe that was his whole idea. Every time you see X, you're going to think of that. 20% over the next 5 days, 0% in the next 2 days. We'll talk about this more in a minute. It's more of a little surface trough going on out there. And again, when I show you the satellite picture, we'll talk about that more. And that's 95L really starting to dwindle away in terms of development chances, but it is bringing rain showers and squally conditions through parts of the windwards and leewards. As I talked about, could be the case. That is what's happening. In the Eastern Pacific, I just wanted to show you this. Seriously? Nothing over the next 48 hours and nothing over the next 7 days. Wow. I think that is a huge clue that the Atlantic Basin, once it takes off, it's going to dominate. I really do. I believe that. I think there's logic behind that thinking. If we were having hurricane after hurricane out here, just barreling off, racking up ace points, generating a lot of upward motion, and the sinking air that comes, we call it subsidence, shear that would result from that would come across into the Caribbean and the deep tropics. It's not happening. It's a big fat zero out there in the East Pac for now, and I think that's very telling. And even on the satellite animation here, very little going on in the Eastern Pacific, a little bit of squally conditions here, convective activity off the northwest coast of Colombia, south of Panama, Costa Rica, but that's about it. This, by the way, is the monsoonal flow coming up into the desert southwest out of northwestern Mexico. Got a high pressure area sitting over here, and that helps to just pump that moisture in across the forested areas of Mexico. You get evapotranspiration, and that moisture transport helps as well. And it's a good thing. They need the moisture out here because it's been so hot, and we got to try to keep things as green as we can, because when they dry out, it's just going to be a lot of fuel out here. But I know you're interested in what's going on with this here. That's the area that the Hurricane Center outlined. It's a little surface trough, and the best way to describe it, it's kind of an elongated area of low pressure down at the surface. So that means that the air is coming towards it, convergence at the surface, and so you get some thunderstorms developing out of that. The key will be, does it consolidate? You know where I'm going with this. Does it all bundle up? Because right now it's kind of loosely organized. You get these different bubbling showers and thunderstorms out there, like watching a pot boil, these big upheavals of convection, as it were. But does it consolidate into a low pressure area where the whole thing starts to turn and all that jazz, right? That's what we're looking for to see if that happens. Because if it does manage to do so, whenever, and it were to get into the Gulf of Mexico, like a lot of the modeling is indicating, with some energy, the Gulf is ridiculously warm. Now, this could prove to be a little bit of a benefit, a benefit, that's the word I'm looking for, if it doesn't develop, because that disturbance will trek across the Gulf and it'll take that edge off. Anything happening in the Gulf of Mexico will help to bring those temperatures down just a little bit. Probably not enough, though, to keep things from getting really, really bad if the atmosphere cooperates with a hurricane in the Gulf. We'll talk about that when we look at sea surface temperatures in just a little bit. And then there's 95L. definitely bringing some squally conditions to the islands. If you're down in that area, let me hear from you in the comments. Would love to know, how's it going down there? All right, from Guadeloupe south, even up towards close to the northern parts of the islands there, the Virgin Islands, maybe just north of St. Thomas and St. John. I'll have to get up with Tim and Brent to see what's happening. Let's slide the satellite animation to the east a little bit, covering the rest of the tropics. This is a telltale sign of very dry air in the mid-levels, a very stable atmosphere. But this is a lot of moisture coming out, the monsoon trough out there, trying to get things going, but we're battling climatology still. This has nothing to do with the El Nino. You don't look at this and say, oh, look, there's nothing happening out there. All those forecasts are going to be wrong. El Nino is, no. That has zero to do with El Nino. This is a very normal pattern. Dry air comes off Africa. It's usually not until about 3 weeks from now that we really begin to look out here, and it's like a switch getting flipped. You guys know, you've seen it before. Some years it doesn't happen, but I think this year it will, if not sooner than the last third of August. We'll see. But yeah, there's some activity out there to watch, certainly, but the SAL, the Saharan air layer, and climatology are kind of impediments for anything getting going anytime soon. So there's the vorticity signature, and that's exactly what I'm talking about. See, it's stretched out, and that's not going to cut it, as they say. There's some energy coming off the East Coast. Some of this might come along and help to bundle this up a little bit. This is going to lift out, and then this piece of energy is going to make its way over into the Gulf of Mexico. I'll show it to you on the GFS in a little bit. A lot of spread out energy with 95L out here. And then there is some energy along that monsoon trough, and we're just going to have to see, does it curl up and consolidate at some point? Maybe. The GFS, as I said, is doing cat and mouse with it, so we're going to have to just be patient and wait and see what happens. Be patient as in, nobody's wanting a nasty hurricane to come their way, but if you're watching for tropical development, these things do take time, and the models are not forecasts. They are merely guidance, all right? So, yeah, anyway, there's 95L. Clearly, you can see why it's called a tropical wave. And then there's our monsoon trough action out here. Look at that. Sometimes you get those purples in there. Very deep moisture available in the atmosphere overall, but some drier air coming in and mixing with it, and that just needs to abate a little bit. We need to see that drier air more up here, staying up there, and this moist air kind of filling in this area more, and we'll be off to the races, and it's going to be probably just one after the other for several weeks, kind of like 2004. That's my opinion. We'll see if I am right about that. And then the energy over here, lots of moisture, but nothing consolidating just yet. However, as they like to say, whoever they is, let's see what happens. All right, let me show you what you need to watch. There's our little area of energy in the southwest Atlantic. This is the 850 millibar level of the atmosphere, so about 5,000 feet up. There's 95L, and then here's our monsoon trough action sitting out here. Just a large area, large envelope of energy and moisture, and we'll just have to see, does it ever try to consolidate? So we've got those three areas to watch. So let's put this into motion here, frame by frame, 24 hours out, 48 hours out, right there, 72. That's where things are just a little bit more interesting. There's our piece in the Gulf. This starts to try to amplify a little bit more. 95L is there. Look at that big old subtropical ridge down there. Nothing's going to come in and just turn out to sea near Bermuda with that kind of a pattern. It is not happening. All right, move this on out further. This is 96 hours. Now, this does start to become interesting. 4 days from now, that system right there starts to amplify more. That would certainly, one would assume it would be mentioned by the Hurricane Center at this time. There's our impulse in the Gulf over 31 Celsius water. We got to watch these things because that's pretty close to home down there, right? Absolutely. Finally, by day 5 and then day 6 right here, well, the GFS wants to develop a full, developed tropical storm or something, right? Tropical cyclone. And then maybe something tries to knock on the door of southeast Texas. Now let's zoom in for the Gulf area here, because this is more important than what's happening in the tropical Atlantic right now, in my opinion. There's the feature right there that we need to watch. And just watch the evolution here as I scroll this through. All right, it works its way into the Gulf. A little bit of an impulse right there, right? So we'll see. Let's just do a little bit of detective work and play with the different parameters here. Let's go up to the upper levels and look at the 200 millibar winds. I know they're in here somewhere. Not entirely favorable. They're southwesterly flow, but not very strong overall. But no, there's not some huge anticyclone sitting over the area like you see down here over Central America as an example, and another one sitting up here, upper level ridging over Florida. So not ideal for something to develop, but the GFS hinting that we may have to watch a little closer over the next few days. And looking at the moisture for it, what does it look like? Comes through, there's just not much there overall. So I'm not too concerned with it. I mean, that just looks like some energy, a wave, like the surface trough going across the Gulf towards Texas. Maybe you guys can get some rain out of it without it being much more than that. And maybe it'll chop up those sea surface temperatures just a little bit. We'll have to see. Because, I mean, look, now we're getting 32 Celsius up here just south of Vermilion Bay, 31 Celsius. We're talking upper 80s to almost 90 degrees Fahrenheit. And all these other areas out here. This is the warmest that I've ever seen the Gulf of Mexico. And I've done this for over 30 years. Obviously, internet and access to this kind of stuff, really the last 20 years where it's been this ubiquitous and easy to find this kind of data. It's not good for a lot of reasons. The coral situation in the Keys, I read about that. Different marine life are going to be affected. And then, of course, the weather. High dew points at night makes it difficult for people to cool off at night, especially those who can't afford to be paying high electric bills. And then, of course, it comes to the hurricanes, if the atmosphere cooperates. And that's a key here, because 31, 32 Celsius water isn't going to do jack if you have shear coming across or dry air in the atmosphere for those thunderstorms to ingest and then basically self-destruct. But if the atmosphere aligns, yes, I'm very concerned, and it's, logic would say, yes, you should be too. So if you're along the Gulf Coast, I would just step up my hurricane thought process a little bit more in the coming days and weeks. Seriously, just do it. Think about, all right, wasn't going to do much this year. They said there's an El Nino coming, and that typically reduces activity. Well, we don't know for sure. And with those temperatures like that, yeah, just think about it a little bit more if you haven't already. That's all I'm saying. All right, trying to help you out. And, of course, expanding to the just everything's red map, so to speak. Most of the Gulf substantially warmer than normal. All the deep tropics out here warmer than normal. And the El Nino just kind of still stuck over here in the eastern part. Not a lot of substantial warming out in the typical areas that we would see it grow into. Wow. Interesting times ahead. To keep up with those interesting times, we are on Patreon, and they have now made it so that you can log in and sign up without having to choose a tier. In other words, free. Yes, you can join for free, see my post, interact, send messages, comment, and then when we have an active situation, a field mission, and you want to see what we do and fund and help what we do, you can do so. You can choose the tier that best suits your needs. I think it's a great move by Patreon. It's going to help build our community, and you can join up, on the money side, because we got to pay for all this stuff. It's my job, right? But then in the meantime, you don't have to not be able to get access to at least what we're talking about. I think it's a great move by Patreon. You go to patreon.com or just get the app, Patreon, on the app stores of your device and search HurricaneTrack. All one word, right there, HurricaneTrack on Patreon. And can't wait to see you there, all right? And then, of course, when we have an active field mission, you have access when you upgrade to one of the tiers to arguably the best hurricane coverage on the internet. I try to make that argument. We try our best anyway. We've got a great team. One of those guys is with me. His name is Mike Cornelius, and he and I are working to test things that are going to help give you that best coverage. I at least try to say we do the best that we possibly can. I don't, number one, who cares? I shouldn't have said it, but Anyway, try to be humble about it. Let's try to get this online before I put my foot in my mouth further, right? I just like what we do, and I hope you do too. And apparently you do, because you watch these videos, and that means a lot to me. Have a great rest of your Tuesday. I'm going to head out and start getting some work done for the day up here in northern Arizona. I'm Mark Setta. Thanks for tuning in. I'll be back with more for you tomorrow.